Scoop Reloader? It is Thursday afternoon. We are grinding our way through spring practice. Huge Saturday coming up, Student Appreciation Day. A lot of activity, a lot of excitement is coming with that. There's going to be a ton of people there. That's always a juiced up day for the team. You get to practice in front of your student body. It's always really fun and lively. It's a great day for field goal kickers too, because they get to put the crowd all the way around them and see if they got what it takes to get it done in a pressure-packed situation. We are going to break down some recent offensive lineman commitments. We have the Armstrong twins, Dion and Devon, are both in the fold now. And I'm going to break down a 5-star tackle that I think is squarely in Justin Fry's crosshairs right now. He's a guy that is a really talented player. We're going to break his film down. So we're going to start off with him. But as always, thank you guys. As always, we appreciate you guys. The site has been growing. The YouTube has been growing. The chat has been a blast. It was a Bill Green Bank chat today. It was really a great, super active day on the site. We got a nugget coming tomorrow. Some of the guys that have really been tearing it up this week. We got some good intel from practice the last 2 days. And then Saturday, these guys are counting down. They got about 2 weeks left, about 6 practices left, including the spring game. And it is go time and is on to summer conditioning. So with that being said, we're actually going to jump right into the film room and talk about our first person that we are going to bring up. A kid named Guerby Lambert is a kid that I think huge upside. We have 4 committed offensive linemen. I think we end up with 6 offensive linemen. I think that we will have a couple kids at the portal after spring ball. Guys that aren't getting reps, guys that have been kind of penciled out of the rotation are going to be asked to move on. So I think you got to get 6 in this class. We got the 4 kids from Ohio. Obviously, the Armstrong twins, we got 3, and then you count Ian Moore, who's in Indiana, which is kind of part of Ohio this season. But we need to get 2 more guys. There's some big-time national guys that we can really go after to round out this class. Again, there's a help wanted sign outside the offensive line room. There's been unbelievable attrition from that room just because, the Harry Miller situation. We had 2 kids transfer out, Max Ray and Ryan Jacoby. Ryan Jacoby's going to start for Pitt this year. Max Ray medically retired. And then you've had 3 offensive tackles go pro in the last 2 years. That's never happened at Ohio State. That's never happened. I don't know if that's ever happened anywhere, because that is an extremely rare and impressive fact. And again, it's like one of those chicken or the egg things, when you say, oh, we don't have, tackles, or we don't have whatever. I'm like, well, yeah, when you get guys that go 3 and out and 4 and out, it does make it harder because, you got to remember, like with the depth chart, there's some big time tackles that look at that depth chart and they say, ooh, Paris Johnson's there, ooh, DeJuan's there. I'm not going to be able to play as a freshman. So there's some guys that it doesn't look appetizing to come to Ohio State when they see Nick Petit-Frere and Thayer, and then, you got Paris and DeJuan. And I mean, you're not playing over those guys. So people go elsewhere. But, DeJuan took off. Paris obviously was the guy that everybody knew would be 3 and out. And Nick Petit left a year early. So it's kind of left us with Josh Fryer manning the left tackle spot. And then you got Zen and Tigra battling that right tackle spot. I still think if they're not satisfied that they move Johnny Jackson to left tackle and they put Josh Fryer at right tackle, I think that's the best solution as of today, pass protection-wise. But Justin Fry is going with leaving Donnie at left guard, which, again, that's his decision. But, I think having 2 lockdown tackles on the edge is the way to go. So I'm going to get right into this film. Give me 1 second. I'm going to pull this up because, Guerby Lambert is a kid. He's really impressive. He's a super athlete, really long arms. And I watched a little bit of his film, but when I do these, I like to kind of keep it cold. So you guys are kind of watching it at the same time I am, so that you get a more natural reaction out of me. So, Guerby Lambert is a kid that it's going to be a fist fight to get him, but he is a prototypical tackle, 6'7", 300 pounds. Really a good athlete. Here he's playing right tackle, which it's not that big of a concern because if you have a senior and he's playing left tackle early in his career, it's not a big of a deal. But he's a brute of a kid. You see him decimating this 3 technique. Again, this is tough when you're overwhelmed and you're going backwards like that. That is it's not the greatest spot to be in. And again, sometimes you have to judge these guys based on their competition. And he's dominating kids that aren't nearly as good as him. There's not going to be guys at Ohio State that's going to be able to dump 30 yards downfield like this. But you see he's a smooth mover. He's very athletic. And like I said, I just like how he has the length and the height that we really need at tackle. And he does like to finish, and again, a lot of these kids are overwhelmed. So you see him here dump this kid on his head. And I like that. Like, I like the nastiness. I like that, he's not a gentle giant, because sometimes these guys, they feel bad because they're just dominating people so bad, but he does not feel bad. Again, you see him ragdoll these guys, again, the level of competition isn't there, at a place like this, but he's got a nice smooth set. Again, when you're facing a real speed rusher, you're probably going to have a little bit more stagger in your stance, a little quicker, but he's up quick. He's got his hands going. Again, this guy is not a speed threat off the edge, so he can kind of just take a nice relaxed set. When he gets to Ohio State and he's seeing guys like JT Tuimoloau and guys of that caliber, you don't have as much time to set up and just kind of relax like he does. But again, I like his ability. I like his feet. I think he's going to be a really a spectacular guy. And again, this is a guy that if you're Justin Fry for Brian Hartline, you really have to zero in and go get this kid. 1 second, I'm gonna switch it back to his film. Give me 1 second, guys. But like I said, I really like his ability to glide, his ability to move. Just like he's what we need on the edge, because right now we're a little short. We're trying to make it work with some younger guys, and I think it's tough. And I think really, like, for Justin Fry, whoever ends up being the best pass protector is going to be our guy out on the edge. And again, I still think that there's a part of me that says that it ends up being Donnie Jackson, because I think Donnie's the guy that, if you want to put your best guy out at left tackle, Donnie's your guy. And we got some really good stuff coming up on the site. Again, we've got Brandon Inniss at 2:00 tomorrow. If you guys are around, we're going to have Brandon Inniss on the show live. We're going to go over his film, watch some of his tape. Again, I know that you guys, you love everything that the South Florida Express kids bring. A lot of smoke around JJ Smith right now. Cardell Tate has been fantastic. So we're going to have a really good show from that perspective with those guys. Trying to get Guerby Lambert back on here for you guys. But yeah, he's an impressive kid. And we got the Armstrong brothers. I think I'm going to break some of their stuff down too as well. Give me 1 second. See if this is good. But yeah, and what questions do you guys have? I got the show on right now, and we are looking for a couple tackles. It looks like. In terms of some of the guys that have been popping off in spring ball, again, there's a couple weeks left, but a guy that I want everyone to recognize that is really making a huge move right now is Ty Hamilton. That is the guy that I've been told multiple times from people inside the Woody Hayes is really growing into that nose guard. And it's interesting because he and Mike Hall play the same position. Mike Hall obviously started off like an absolute monster against Notre Dame. Then he was hurt, kind of faded a little bit. But Ty Hamilton is not giving that spot up easily. I mean, I think Ty could start over Mike Hall. Now, again, I know that they'll both rotate in. I know that they'll both be, part of the rotation going forward, especially given how thin our defensive tackle room is. But Ty has been a guy who's been an absolute load for our guys on the interior of the offensive line. He's less heralded than Mike Hall and Tyleek. Those guys get a lot of pub. Obviously, Tyleek had a monster freshman year. Mike Hall had that huge start against Notre Dame where he looked like he was going to be the next John Randall. And they both kind of faded. But Ty is a guy who's really progressed. He's a guy that is a weight room junkie. He's a lot like Davon Hamilton. Davon Hamilton starts for the Jaguars now. He's a guy, one of the more under-heralded guys that we've had at Ohio State over the last 10, 15 years. And he's going to get a nice second contract. I don't know if he's going to get the number that Draymond got, but he's going to get a pretty impressive next deal just because he's a grinder. He's a guy who's tough. He's a guy that does all the stuff that a lot of people don't write about, but gets guys paid in the NFL. He's not a sack machine like some of the pass rushing defensive tackles are, but he's a very, very strong part of that Jaguars defense. And the Jaguars, again, I know that Urban went there and it was a spectacular failure, but that team is on the rise. That roster is on the rise. That roster's young. They kind of tore it all down the way that they do in sports now, where teams that aren't in contention basically tear it down to the studs and acquire draft picks and get rid of bad contracts and, kind of rebuild through through free agency and through the draft. And they've done a great job. And I think Davon is going to be a big part of that growing and going forward. 1 second. I'm trying to get my Guerby Lambert tape ready to roll. Looks like we're good. But yeah, we've got looks like we're going now. Okay, I'm gonna flick this back on. We were back kind of in the middle of it, so I'm just gonna let this run, talk over it. But again, he's a guy, 6'7". I love people say, where was I last night? What's up, Temecula, California? We got Hendo. Shout out where you guys are from. I love when you guys do that. I haven't been saying that enough, but I see Savannah, Georgia. I see Temecula. Where are you guys from? Appreciate you, Neil Harris, the 411 dude. That's my boy. Love when you say that. And what questions do you guys have? I know that O-line recruiting has kind of been a bugaboo the last couple of years. I personally think, I know that I'm probably in the minority, but I thought Stud did a great job offensive line recruiting. And there's some people that think I'm crazy for saying that, but if you just go look at our last 8 to 10 classes and look at, the star rankings, look at the production, look at the NFL draft pick status, look at the contracts, I thought it was as strong as there's ever been. I mean, Paris is about to be a top 15 pick. DeJuan's probably going to be a first or second round pick. Nick Petit started as a rookie in the league, did a fantastic job. I was actually texting Nick today. Thayer started some games as a rookie in the NFL, did a great job. Josh Myers has been a day one starter for the Packers. Wyatt is the one that's kind of weird because I would have never guessed that Wyatt would have bounced around the league like he has. But, I think Wyatt, if he finds the right place, he can get back to being that upper echelon, Pro Bowl-ish, arc-ish type guard. And again, I don't know. That's one of the ones that I would have never guessed him and Billy Price would have struggled in the NFL because I thought they're both really good kids, really tough kids. So it's not always as easy as you think when it comes to evaluating guys, because those guys are both plus character guys, super strong guys, weight room guys, great team guys. And, sometimes it doesn't work for whatever reason. Billy Price is a guy who, I would have bet a large sum of money he'd be a Pro Bowler, a longtime Cincinnati Bengal. And for whatever reason, it didn't work. But, he's still in the league, played a lot for the Cardinals last year. I'm sure he'll get a job this year. And he's a guy that, he's been in the league for, 5-6 years now, and there's nothing to sneeze at. As a guy who was in the league for a few years, it's a tough thing to do. I love it. Yeah. Todd, I love Dan Henderson. I was at UFC 100 when he shut up, Bisping. That was one of the most iconic, fights in UFC history, but yeah, Dan Henderson's a monster. But yeah, you guys got any questions? Again, we got Lambert's film rolling right now. Again, he's a big, fluid dude. He's a big, strong dude. And again, here he is over at left tackle now. And he gets his hands on guys and he finishes them. And again, you see him put guys in the ground. And again, you can't judge. Like I said, the hardest part about evaluating offensive linemen is sometimes they don't play the best competition, especially when they're from this end of the country. He's not from Georgia. He's not from Texas. Not from Florida. So you're not going to see him play against big time dudes every week. And even so, even if they are from those states, a lot of times, he's not going to be seeing an SEC or a Big Ten level guy every week. So when you're watching a highlight tape, you're not always going to, see a guy dominating, a top tier type guy. You'll see him dominating a lesser guy, but that's kind of, why highlight tapes can be deceiving. That's why Ohio State staff like Mark Bettini and those guys, they love to watch multiple game tapes on top of the highlight tape just to see, does he dominate better competition? Does he dominate, when it counts, when it matters? And that's it's something that is exciting to see. After this, I'm going to put on Dion and Devon, the Armstrong twins tape. So Dion is the tackle. So I was trying to figure out a way to remember that. And Devon is the guard, or Devon. And, I was thinking, tackle's a premium position. Dion Sanders played corner. That's a premium spot. So Dion, tackle, premium. Devon, guard, not as premium. And again, they could both end up being tackles or both end up being guards. But I was trying to figure out a device to remember the difference between the twins, because everybody just calls them the twins. But after watching the film, they're not the same player. They're not identical twins. They're not like the Pounceys, who were both centers and kind of the same height and weight. One of the twins is substantially bigger than the other twin, in terms of a height and reach. And that's why St. Ed's plays Dion at left tackle, and he plays his guard. He plays Devon at left guard. So it'll be interesting to see where they slot them at as they progress through their careers in Ohio State. I think that, like with Marquise Pouncey started at guard as a freshman in '07, I remember. And then, Mike came along later and played guard, and Marquise moved into center. So I'm going to switch over to the Armstrong brothers. And so it'll be interesting to see how Justin deploys these. It'll be interesting to see how these guys do when they're not playing next to each other. Because, at Ohio State, there's going to be a time where guys will separate. They're not always going to be side by side like the Sedin twins. So here you got Devon playing left guard. You've got Dion at 74 playing left tackle. Just rewind this real quick. But again, I like it. And again, these kids, they're going to get bigger. They're going to get stronger. They've gained 40 pounds in the last year. So, when you watch this, again, I like the ankle flexion here. Pardon me, I'm running this. Give me 1 second. Rewind that back. Give me 1 second. Apologize, guys. But yeah, Dion, I think Dion has more upside, and I'll probably end up being dead wrong, and Devon will end up being like a first round pick. But, the taller, generally, if you got to pick one or the other, you pick the taller one that plays tackle. But again, it'll be interesting to see how they progress. It'll be interesting to see who gets on the field first. There's a lot of layers of intrigue when you take brothers or twins or whatever. And like I said, I think that, these kids together are going to be a really good package. So I'm going to just run this for a little bit and talk over it. But yeah, I think that getting the twins, getting Ian Moore, getting Mark Nave, good start to the class. I think, for it to be a home run, you got to go get Lambert. You got to go get one of these tackles, get him in the full, get Jordan Seaton, and just really focus on that. And I think that's one of the luxuries of Brian Hartline now being the offensive coordinator, is that he can assist. Because, Brian has been one of the greatest recruiters in the history of college football through his short career, just in terms of the level of players he's recruited, how well he's developed them into NFL picks. I think he's just done a spectacular job. So here, again, we watch St. Ed's, man. You see some big time games. They don't duck anybody. They won the state championship. Their line is about as good as a MAC line. Basically, the right tackle, Ben Roebuck, obviously going to Michigan. The left side's going to Ohio State. So it's about as good as it can get in terms of just seeing what these guys can do. But like I said, with the twins, again, this is Devon, Dion. So 74 is Dion. So it makes it easy. And again, stance is nice and easy, nice ankle flexion. Again, I think you could be more violent at the point of attack. I think that he might need a little bit bigger split. And again, this tight end or jumbo guy probably could split out a little bit just to avoid, you see Dion almost stepping on his foot here. But, Dion, as he gets a little stronger and a little bit more aggressive, he can run through this guy a little bit better. This is a little soft for me. But again, I think that he's got the tools. He's got him covered up, which is fine. It rolls out the back door, which again is also fine. But I think that as these guys get stronger, they'll be able to get a little tougher and get a little bit more violent in their run fits. But again, the footwork is there. There, obviously, you see a down the field finish from Devon. Again, this is Devon's tape. His tape's much longer than Dion's. Dion doesn't have a full highlight, but when they play side by side, it's easy to kind of just watch both at the same time when you're watching left guard and left tackle. But yeah, I really like these guys. I'm gonna take a couple questions. So Daniel, this is a great question. What area of the team needs to elevate in order to beat Michigan and win in the playoffs? Honestly, it's our defense. Our defensive, especially our back end, it has to be better. And I think that starts with Jim Knowles. I think that, we had too many plays last year where we were so aggressive. And I get being aggressive. Obviously at halftime of that Ohio State Michigan game, we felt like we were in great shape because our defense was stomping them. But there's some points where you don't have to be all out as aggressive as can be, to the point where if one guy misses a fit, like Tommy Eichenberg did late in the game when we needed to get a stop, we ran the jack front, Jack Sawyer filled his gap, and then Tommy Eichenberg didn't get there. And I love Tommy, so I'm not being hard on Tommy, but I think that you have to have some defenses where if one guy misses his fit, it's not a 75-yard touchdown. Because I think that we were too aggressive. Again, and I'm all for man coverage. I love aggressive defense, but there has to be a time where you just keep guys in front of you. Like when it's a tight game like that, and you're trying to go for broke and get that stop. It was like when it was 3rd and 11 or whatever, and we sent the house and we dropped Jack Sawyer into the hook curl zone, and then Cam Brown misses a tackle, and then all of a sudden Jack has to get there. Like that's really hard on Jack. That's really hard on the whole defense. You basically string it out so one guy has to make a play. So I think that again, I never advocate being passive on defense, but I also think that there's a time and a place to go crazy and empty the chamber and run suicide blitz basically. Because, when you run that stuff, sometimes you're going to get scorched. And, we gave up a lot of long plays last year on defense. And, the way our offense scores, you don't have to hold them to 7 points or 3 points like we did back in the Tressel day. Like now you hold them to 28, we're going to win like 99.9% of our game. But you just have to be smart and cognizant of what you're doing. And again, I hate defenses where if one guy misses a fit in the run game, it's an 80-yard touchdown, 75-yard touchdown. And that's, and we ran that with that jack look. I thought the jack look was a disaster last year. I thought it was a total waste of time. I don't think Jim Knowles used it the way that he did it at Oklahoma State. And I studied how he did it at Oklahoma State probably more than anybody in the Ohio State media sphere, because I literally watched all the tapes, all their defensive tapes. I watched them, and the jack was a much more attacking spot. The jack was a smaller guy than Jack Sawyer. Was a like 230-pound guy, linebackerish, hybridish type guy who could run a little better than Jack. And, and it was an attacking role, but the way we deployed it, we did it for 10 plays a game. And I just felt like the whole defense never got like a true feel for how to run the jack because we used it so little, like anything, it's like anything in sports. If you practice it and you run it in the games, then guys get familiar and comfortable with it, with the fits, with positioning, with whatever. But like when you barely run it and then you throw it out, during the most important part of the game, and all of a sudden we don't hit the fit because we haven't run it all day. That's tough. Like that's tough on Tommy Eichenberg. It's tough on Jack Sawyer. It's tough on these guys that their roles change when the jack is deployed. Because like for Tommy and Steele, it's a little different when they have 3 down line guys in front of them and Jack Sawyer playing the jack in front of them. That's different than having the normal 4 down. So, I just think that, if you're going to run the jack, you have to run it 35-40% of the time. You can't run it 5% of the time and expect it to be good. And that's just how sports is. This is how football is. Like if we're, trying to run a running play or trying to run Dave or a zone play, you have to practice it and you have to run it a lot. You can't just like, kind of dabble in it and hope that it works when it comes game time. And that's kind of what we did with the jack. And again, I think that it's done. I think that Larry Johnson had enough of the jack. I think that Jack Sawyer returning to defensive end and putting his hand on the ground is going to be an unbelievable boon for our defense because, he can get back to being Jack Sawyer and not being this kind of hybridish defensive end. And again, I think, Jack getting up to 265, 270, that's not the ideal body type that you want for the jack. I think CJ Hicks would be a perfect body type for the jack because a jack has to be kind of a hybrid defensive end linebacker where Jack Sawyer is all defensive end. He's not a hybrid guy. He's not a guy that you could consider playing linebacker because he's too big, and it's not a knock on Jack, but it's just the body types, the speed, the agility, the skill set. So that's my opinion. Let me see. How confident am I that we'll have a solid offensive line this year? I think I'm actually very confident. I know that I sound crazy and people probably think I'm nuts for saying that, but we've had great offensive lines year over year. I mean, really, probably the year that people were the most nervous and shaky about the offensive line was that 2014 group when you were starting Jacoby Bourne and Darryl Baldwin, and guys, we end up winning the national title. And I think this group is every bit as, if not better than that, because you have 2 really good guards. You have a good center. Carson Hinsman is really doing phenomenal work through spring ball. I think Josh Fryer is a very underrated guy. He's not as pretty as Paris, but he's a worker. He's a guy that's obsessed with the game. He's going to get better every week. And then, at right tackle, you got to find Zen or Tigra or hit the portal, George Fitzpatrick. I mean, somebody has to assume the pass blocking responsibilities of playing right tackle. And I think that this offense only goes as far as the tackles pass protection will let it. So, that's going to be something to watch. And I think that, if I sat down with Brian Hartline, which I've done, I'd say, look, you got to do some things to mix it up and help that right tackle out. Because your left side's going to be fine with Donnie and Josh Fryer. Those guys will be fine. They'll be good enough for us to win games and to beat anybody. But that right side, you just got to make sure it's not leaky. You got to make sure that, that right tackle gets a little bit of help. And there's ways to help in the offense and in pass protection where it isn't just a bunch of one-on-one rushes, like JT Tubelow or Jack Sawyer versus Zen or Tigra. Those right now aren't winning matchups for us, but you can do things. You can put a running back in the wing, which we call a hip position, or he can chip. You can put a tight end out there. You can roll. You can move the pocket. You can cut. There's a million different things you can do that makes it a lot easier than just having, your guy sit straight back there. And I tell people, I'm like, look, calling pass protections in a game is the same thing as like a pitcher with 5 different good pitches and mixing your pitches up and making yourself unpredictable and making it even harder. Because if you're a guy that's got 2 pitches and it's 4-seam fastball or slider, eventually they're going to figure it out, and they're going to guess right. They're going to take a yard. But when you've got 5 good pitches or 5 good protections and you can mix it up and make it a little easier, that's the key. And I think that's something that's going to be really interesting to see with Brian Hartline, because I think Brian, he's going to be learning on the job. But man, this is it's a bubbling cauldron when you're at Ohio State, because, our fan base, we eat our own, so Brian's got, I think he's very capable of being a fantastic offensive coordinator. I talked to him last year about being an offensive coordinator. I was like, dude, you got to start calling plays, man. I mean, you're looking to be a head coach, in a year or 2 or whenever, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever it is, but you got to get good at calling plays. You got to turn to Lincoln Riley. Like, I know that, like, deep down, he wants to be the next Lincoln Riley. He wants to be a guy that is a guru offensive coordinator. He's running a big time program. And, you have to start calling plays. There's been very few guys that have gone to be head coaches that haven't been fantastic play callers. So that's my opinion on the O-line. I think the O-line is going to be really good. Appreciate you, PJ. Yeah, I think losing Mitchell Melton was a decent blow. I think that he's the guy that was progressing. For a guy that hasn't played, they talk about him a lot. So that usually means that he's a good kid. And, when he's been in practice, he's been flashing. Now, the hardest part about football is if you're hurt, you're not relevant. They can't count on you if you're hurt, if you're ACL, if you miss spring ball. And some guys they take care of because, like a guy like Trey Henderson, they can hold him because his freshman year tape was so good. But, Mitchell hasn't played. So he's got a huge summer in front of him and a huge fall camp in front of him. I mean, that's like his Super Bowl, basically. So he's got to bring the wood. He's got to be ultra productive and basically make up for lost time and make Larry Johnson feel comfortable enough putting him in as the jack. Because I know Larry Johnson does not like the jack. He likes his 4-down look. And I think the D linemen like the 4-down look. You got to remember, like a lot of these guys that are pass rushing D linemen, they don't like playing in odd fronts. They don't like playing in a 3-down look because all of a sudden everyone's getting double teamed. You got a head up nose, which every defensive tackle in the world hates. They like being on the outside shoulder of a guard so they can pass rush and get up the field and dominate. So, let's see if I can rewind this. Apologize, guys. I'll just take it back to the full screen. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you guys. But I think that, with the Jack and Mitchell Melton, it'll be interesting. Again, I think the guy for it is CJ Hicks, because I think that when you run the Jack, it has to be more of a linebacker than a defensive end, because basically when you're in that position, it basically is, you're a linebacker. So you have to be able to read like a linebacker. You have to be able to move side to side like a linebacker. I don't think it's for a traditional defensive end. I really don't. All right. Here we go. All right. I love these. I appreciate you, Daniel. I got a super chat going here. High State is down by 4 3 minutes ago. Do you believe Colin McCord is the guy that will pull us out of the fire like Troy Smith did? Wow. That is a great question. I think he can be. Now, I can't ever compare anyone to Troy Smith, because if you guys go back and watch that 05 tape with Troy, that was the most unbelievable comeback I think I've ever seen. And Troy is just an absolute legend. And that was when Michigan was really good. That was when they had Lloyd Carr, Jake Long, Chad Henne just finished up like his 15th year in the league. I mean, that was a really good Michigan team. Ryan Mallett was in there a little bit because Henne was hurt. But yeah, I think McCord can do it. And I think the reason I think McCord can do it is because he's not by himself. He's got Marvin, he's got a Mecca. Again, when you got those two guys, you have a chance in every game. That's like when we played, we had Anthony Gonzalez, we had Troy Smith, Ted Ginn. We were never out of a game. We lost some heartbreakers, like we lost to Texas. That was a heartbreaker. But, when you've got those guys as your skill guys, you're never out of the game. You got just too much skill. And I think those guys are going to be hungry, man. I mean, this is going to be an absolute war. Like, there's no tiptoed into Ann Arbor. Like, I went up there twice as a player, one in 05 and 07, and it is, you can't take that place for granted. It doesn't matter how much better you are than they are, what your record is. Like, again, I hate cliches. I hate things, but the year in 05, they were beating us late in the game and they were 6-4 or something. And we were, whatever, we had 2 losses, but we were, 9-2 or whatever it was. We had 2 losses, but we were really good. We lost to 2 of the top 5 teams in the country, and they'd lost to some crappy teams, and they'd been hurt and whatever. So, but we were able to come back and win, and I think Kyle can do it because again, he's got Marvin and Emeka. That makes everything a little more, a little easier because I think Emeka is the guy that can really be the X factor on the offense this year. I really do because he is like a Robert Woods guy that can carry the ball. He can get open. Robert Woods in his prime was a monster for the LA Rams. And, he tore his ACL. He hasn't been really the same since. But I think Emeka is a guy that it was really disappointing at the end of that Georgia game that he didn't get the ball on 3 straight plays because I think he's that good and he's the X factor. Everyone knows what Marvin can do. Marvin's the best player in the country, but Emeka might be number 2 in the country. Like, he's that good. And I'm telling you, he might not be to the level of Marvin because Marvin's probably going to be a top 5 pick, but Emeka can do some stuff better than Marvin can, just in terms of the horizontal, the jet sweep game, the short game. Like Marvin's a taller, angular receiver who's just an absolute monster, but Emeka's got that skill set where, if you get creative, man, you can get him 10, 15 touches where he's carrying the ball out of the backfield. And I'm not saying from a traditional tailback role. I'm saying from, like a jet sweep type role, orbit motion, screen behind the field type role, like those type of things. And I think that's where he's really special. I appreciate the super chat, Dino, as always. You're the man. I agree on free 91 and free 51, man. These guys have it's go time now. For these guys, it is absolute go time for Tyleek and Mike Hall. And again, I think that when guys are going into year 3 of their career, like these guys will start to sharpen their pencils a little bit. These guys start eating a little healthier. They don't go out as much. They're not drinking as much. They're not partying as much because now it's real. Now you have a chance where if you had that big year and you pop off, you can go to the league. I think that, if it was up to Ryan Day and all the coaches in the building, they would want you to go to the league. Because I think that the easiest thing that a guy like Brian Hartline can sell is like, look, if you're good, you're 3 and out. You're going to be in the league when you're 20, like Garrett Wilson. You're going to sign for $25 million and you're going to be set for life. So if you put it all in and you grind like Marvin Harrison, like Emeka, 2 more 3 and out guys. So, if Mike Hall goes off and gets 9 sacks this year and he runs a 4.7, which he could, then you're a first round pick. And Tyleek is a guy who has all the ability in the world, but these guys, they have to learn how to play hard when they're tired. And that's something, if you read between the tea leaves and you're reading, you listen to what some of these guys say, why doesn't this guy play? Why doesn't he get in? Oh, he doesn't do the little things right. It usually means that they dog it when they're tired or when it's not their play, or, if a wide receiver is not getting, any love from Brian Hartline, it's usually because they don't know how to go hard, especially when, the play's away from them and they're the backside route that has no chance of getting the ball. Like, you still got to go hard on those, and those coaches, if there's one thing they hate, it's a lack of effort. And, and with effort on a football team, that stuff's either tolerated or it's taught, so I mean, it's either taught or allowed. And I think that that's something that Tyleek has struggled with. Tyleek has got to learn how to play hard every snap. And he's not the first defensive tackle. In fact, I think every defensive tackle that I've ever been around gets lazy and gets tired, and it's not a knock on Tyleek, but that's just the thing that keeps him off the field sometimes. When he gets upset and he's saying free Tyleek, I'm like, dude, you got to play hard in practice. You got to dominate in practice. You got to go take it out on Matt Jones and Donnie and Carson Hinsman. Like, every day you got to go make their lives miserable because you go hard, on play 6 and 7 of the drive, not just play 1 and 2. So I oh, excuse me. Apologize. Uh, I think, Evan Pryor is in a weird spot right now. Sorry, I gotta make that a little bit bigger. That was really small. Um, I think he's in a very interesting spot just because missing the spring hurts. He was the guy that was electric in the spring game, and they were really nervous he was going to transfer. I mean, he was a guy that, they were trying to scrape some NIL money around to keep him happy. And, he stuck and then unfortunately tore his ACL. So there's some guys that, they got to have, their roles kind of written in stone, even if they're not able to do anything to keep him here. And, I think that with the natural transition of college football, there's going to be guys that transfer. I'm not saying he's one of them, but our running back room is the most, as of this moment today, on paper, is the most loaded running back room I've ever seen at Ohio State, with Trey, Mayan, Dallin Hayden, Chip, Evan. I mean, you just got guys out the wazoo. We didn't even get a guy to commit. We didn't get Mark Fletcher or Richard Young or any of those kids. So it's a loaded room, man. And that's why, James Peoples is going to end up being a Buckeye, in a year. That place it's going to look like Will Smith's living room in The Fresh Prince, where it's all empty. Trey's going to be gone. Mayan's going to be gone. I think, if none of those guys transfer, you might have Dallin, Chip, and Evan Pryor left, but it's going to be kind of open for business. And if you're a superstar, like I think James Peoples is, then you've got all the incentive in the world to stay locked in and really get it done. So, but I think Evan Pryor, if he's healthy and his mind is right, I mean, I'd make him a kick returner. I'd manufacture stuff for him to get touches as often as possible, because he's electric. He's a guy that's got great speed. And again, when you have guys like that and you can keep everybody's kind of touches down, it's really good. Is Kyle McCord's athleticism being underestimated? I think it is. I think Kyle's a better athlete than people believe. Again, I thought CJ Stroud was a better athlete than people believed. It's just, the biggest thing with athleticism and playing quarterback at Ohio State is, are you going to use it? Because I've been the biggest proponent of, hey guys, we got to scramble a bit. We got to take what they give us. If they're all running off in man coverage and nobody's looking at the quarterback and you can go get 7 yards and make it 2nd and 3, do it. And I'm not saying drop the shoulder. I'm not trying to say get hurt. I'm trying to say go get 7 yards and slide before some linebacker kills you. That is the most backbreaking thing you can do to a defense. All of a sudden, it's 2nd and 3. We saw what CJ's run did against Georgia. It almost won us the national championship. So I think that, Kyle, especially, if the pass protection isn't as good as it was last year with Paris and Dwan, which it won't be, you got to go get it. When you're playing at Camp Randall or you're playing at Ann Arbor, every yard is golden. Every 1 yard is worth 2 yards. Jim Schultz saw us say this when we were playing these big games, these Michigan games, Texas games. Every yard is golden. So if you can go get 10 yards, it's like really getting 20 versus Akron or Toledo or Youngstown State or whoever. So, I think that that's the most important thing for him. What else we got? You guys bring great questions. I got to say, man, it's always a blast to do this stuff because you guys bring some really good stuff. Any chance our rotation, sorry, I missed this one, Steven. I'll put this one up here. More impactful. It seems like second string is always getting picked on. Can this year's second string still dominate and not miss a step? Well, that just depends on who's in there, and it depends on, their mindset. Again, I hated not being a starter. I hated it. I was glad I played offensive line, because when you're no lineman, there's no rotation. There's no, third down back. There's none of that. You're in the whole game, and that's great. But with the twos on defense, I mean, man, we put them out there versus Wisconsin, and they won about 70 yards on the first play. So I don't know. And that's something where, I think that, that group's going to be younger. I think that there's some guys that it'll be interesting to see who makes up the twos, because there's guys like Sonny Styles and Cody Simon that are right on the cusp of being the starters. I think obviously with Tommy and Steele being the starting linebackers, they're going to be the guys. But with Cody Simon, Cody is like a 1A-ish kind of guy where, you got your two guys written in ink as your starters, but Cody's a guy that's going to have to rotate in a little bit and give those guys a blow. And I like that. Over the course of a long season, if I'm Tommy and I'm Steele and I can give him some of my reps and keep him engaged and keep him sharp, I think it's better. I think that the more guys that can play, especially early in the season, something I've been very critical of Ryan Day is I don't think we get the starters out early enough. I think that, it's not because I want them to have a vacation and take time off. It's because those twos need to get in, and they need to get some live bullets. It can't all be no tackling practice periods and no tackling spring game periods and quarterbacks in a black jersey and all that. Like, you got to get them twos out there to play the game a little bit and get their, they got to go out there and screw some stuff up and get, berated in film and get booed a little bit and get hardened up a little bit. Cause you're going to need those guys down the line to be your starters, cause in college football, you turn the whole roster over every 3-4 years. So, I think that's really important. And the second team defense, again, you got guys like Sonny Styles, Kai Stokes, the third corner, I can't imagine it's going to be Davidson Igbinosun, but it could be Jordan Hancock. I mean, you got guys that they're chomping at the bit to be starters. Kenyatta Jackson. There's some guys that, and again, you're going to need those guys in a year because JT Tumalao likely gone. Tommy Eichenberg, Steel Chambers gone for sure. Lathan Ransom gone. So, you got to get those twos in there a little bit because you got to get Kai Stokes and Sonny Styles. They got to get their mouths bloodied a little bit. They got to go out there, and it can't just be when we're up 77-0 against Rutgers and you put the tuba player out there. You got to put them in when there's like some real situations. So again, another great question. Again, you guys always bring the heat, which is why I love doing this show with you guys. But yeah, I think I'm going to wrap this, but we have Brandon Innes, the great Brandon Innes, Brandon Badman Innes at 2 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. We're going to do that live. Really excited. Love that kid. I think he's a beast. He's going to potentially reveal what number he's going to be wearing. I've talked to him a little bit about it. There's a couple of prospective numbers. So if you guys have questions for Brandon, get on BuckeyesScoop.com. If you guys aren't members, join BuckeyesScoop.com. But we are taking questions. They're only for our premium members. And again, we appreciate you guys as always. We love dealing with you guys. Let me get down to my little exit screen. One more. Ooh, apologize. There we go. Thank you guys. But no, I appreciate you guys as always. Fantastic questions, per usual. Brandon, and it's 2:00 tomorrow. Be there. We're going to go through some of his film, talk a little about why he picked Ohio State, why he picked Brian Hartline, Ryan Day, the offense, his trajectory, his brother Carnell Tate losing his black stripe. A lot of good stuff with Brandon. You guys will love this kid. He is an absolute werewolf. He's a demon. He's a guy that he gets on that field, man. He's not getting out there just to sit around and wait to hopefully get a job one day. He's coming to take a job, and he won't say it, but I know from the people around him that he's just a different cat, and it's in a very, very good way. I think you guys are gonna love him. Dave, you're the best. I'm gonna do one more just because you're my guy. And this is a great question. As I was wrapping that thing up, do I believe that OSU is physical enough in practice, and what is the right way to practice to be good at goal line, short yardage, and tackling? I'll tell you what, I don't think we were physical enough in practice, and I think that it shows up when we play real teams like Michigan and Georgia. Again, we're not making the right run fits. We're not physical against the run. Again, there's a very fine line between beating a team into a pulp and getting them ready to go versus real teams. Like, I mean, we don't. It doesn't matter what we do. We're going to beat Indiana. We're going to beat Purdue. We're going to beat whoever. But like when you play the real teams, the Michigans, the Wisconsins, Georgia, you have to be physical. And again, I think that, Michigan the last 2 years has been more physical than us. And that's embarrassing to say, but that's the way of the world right now. And I think that, when you're physical in practice, especially in the running game, it correlates to be, if you run the ball in practice and you're tough, you're a tough running team in practice, then that correlates to being able to stop the run. Michigan's brand right now is that they run the ball, they're tough, and they can stop the run, and we can score on a little bit, but man, we can't stop. We haven't stopped running against them the last 2 years, and it's been really bad. So, I don't think we're physical enough in practice. I think, but Ryan Day's, that's his decision to make. Him and Mickey Marotti. How hard do you go? How much you amp it up? How much you back it down? But no, I think it shows up in the biggest. When we play like real teams, we play Michigan, we play Wisconsin. The teams that are physical, grinder teams, like. It shows up in our run fits and our run defense. And I think that if you run a tough physical practice and tough physical camp, then you're a good running team. You can stop the run. And if you can't run the ball, again, against Georgia, we needed 7 yards to win a national championship and we lost a yard. We had 3 plays to get 7 yards, making a 43-yard field goal, and we lost a yard. So, again, it was the physicality there? No, absolutely not. But I would amp it up. I would make quarterbacks live. Back in the old days with Troy and and Justin, like they were live. Like we scrimmaged and those guys were live. So, for that offensive tackle, if you miss a block, man, your guy's getting hit. And that adds a whole different layer of complexity and anxiety when all of a sudden, hey, if I don't block Jack Sawyer, my guy's going to get T-boned. I mean, because if you miss a guy, Troy Smith would get hit, or Justin Zwick would get hit, or whoever, Scott McMullen, some of the guys I blocked for, Todd Beckman. I don't think it hurts. I don't think these guys are made out of porcelain. I think they're tough. I think it's good to have the quarterbacks get hit a little bit just because, they're going to get hit at some point in a game. And you got to see how they react to getting hit. Like, do they wilt like a little daisy, or are they tough? Are they fired up? This is part of the game. You're going to get hit as a quarterback. So I think that they should be live for the spring game. I think they should be live for a couple scrimmages, but that's Ryan Day's call. Again, I think he's a little too protective of those guys. So, well, I appreciate you, my man. Thank you, Dave, as always. Scott, this is the last one. Who do I think could be a replacement for Larry Johnson? I don't know. I really don't. I mean, if you look at Ryan's trend, it'd probably be someone who's an intern in the program right now, because we've hired Keenan Bailey, Corey Dennis, Parker Fleming. We've hired more interns to be full-time coaches than any program in the history of college football. So I look and see who the interns are right now. I mean, there's been guys that they looked like they'd be in line to be the successor. Kenny Inukwe was the guy that was there. Vince Ogletree is at UCLA. That's the guy that Ryan knows really well. But it kind of depends on, I think if it's got to be a geographic fit from a recruiting perspective. If there's a guy with a Texas connection, a guy with a Southern connection, I think that would be really beneficial for us, or an East Coast connection. Like Larry Johnson has been dominant on the East Coast, getting Chase Young, out of that Maryland, DC-ish area. I think that, you got to have like a certain territory where you're a dominant recruiter. And I think LJ has been great on that East Coast. But if it's me, man, I'm looking for a guy with Texas ties, Florida ties, Georgia ties, because that's where a lot of the best D linemen are now. They're down south. And if you got a guy that knows those high school coaches, knows those relationships, I really think that that's kind of the key to success now. So, but I'm not sure who Larry would hire or who Ryan would hire, but there's a lot of different guys. Again, a year and a half ago, I wouldn't have known who Jim Knowles was until he became kind of the hot coordinator at Oklahoma State. So there's some guys from Penn State. There's some guys from Texas A&M that would make sense, but as of right now, I'm just not sure. So, well, guys, I appreciate you guys tuning in. This has been a great show. Again, carrying it. We got our guys traveling this week, spring break. So, but we thank you guys as always. We're going to be on Buckeye Scoop all night. It's going to be a blast. It's going to be on that grind. So love to see you guys on the boards. Bill Green had his chat today. It was just incredible. Nevada's got some nuggets ready to go for tomorrow. So it's going to be an awesome day on the Scoop. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show. If you guys enjoyed this, please leave us a like, click subscribe, and also if you could click that alert bell. If you enjoy these shows, you want to see those little alerts, click on that. So again, guys, thank you so much. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Love talking to you guys. Fantastic questions as always. And in the comments, shout out where you're from and comment who is going to show out at Student Appreciation Day. That's going to be open to the students. So there's going to be a lot of video of that. Who's going to show out? Give me a name. Put it in the comments. So as always, thank you guys so much. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. Go Bucks.